What's good? It's your boy 2K here. Shout out to the movement and everybody who's moving with us. Well, man, look, all y'all got to do is follow 3kingsboxing.com. You know what I'm saying? Go to the 3 Kings Boxing YouTube page. Come back to my channel periodically. You know what I'm saying? Look at some of my old videos. And you will see that I have dropped a gem about an event months prior to it actually happening, right? Back in April, I told y'all cats that Andrey Ryabinsky flexed his muscle. He said, yo, amidst all this whole bullshit about Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua, shit, my fighter, Alexander Povetkin, is going to be the next fighter Anthony Joshua fights. He said this shit almost 3 months ago. And what has just recently happened? The WBA mandates Povetkin versus Joshua. Now, apparently the WBA has given him 24 hours, given Joshua 24 hours to sign on the dotted line. Now, here's the thing. Ever since Ryabinsky flexed his muscle, I told you cats back then, I said, look, man, there's a possibility that Povetkin and Hearn will not be able to sidestep Alexander Povetkin, and that this fight with Deontay Wilder is going to happen possibly at the end of this year, early next year, right? Now, there's two things that Joshua can do. One, he can relinquish the WBA title, which I don't think he's going to want to do that because he's already expressed he wanted to be undisputed champion. Two, he could possibly give Alexander Povetkin step-aside money, but the WBA has to accept that. So that second one is still out there. We don't know what could happen in that situation. But the first one, I don't think Joshua relinquishes the belt. You know what I'm saying? It gives away the value of the fight as it pertains to the fighters. Both fighters have expressed they want this fight next because it will name an undisputed champion, right? Deontay Wilder definitely wants to be undisputed champion, and Anthony Joshua's already expressed it. So if he relinquishes that belt, both fighters will think this fight has lowered in value, right? So I don't think either one of those guys will want Joshua to make that decision. Now, in terms of Wilder, I told you cats back in April, he already has something on the table for Dominic Brazil. And in that situation, the WBC pretty much obliged Deontay Wilder's requests, his statements, right, about Dillian Whyte. Now, of course, Dominic Brazil is the number 2 ranked contender in the WBC rankings. Dillian Whyte is the number 1 ranked contender. But Dillian Whyte right now is tied up with Joseph Parker. But before that even happened, Dillian Whyte was the WBC silver champion and the number 1 contender. So he had 2 arguments that he could have put forth to the WBC to say, hey, mandate this fucking fight. My promoter's been talking about it. You know what I'm saying? I've earned it with my ranking and my ability to have the WBC silver title. Mandate the fucking fight. But we all know Deontay Wilder was like, I'm not trying to fight Dillian Whyte before I fight Anthony Joshua. I want the kingpin. I don't want the nigga the kingpin already beat, right? And the WBC, allegedly, was like, yeah, this is what we gonna do. Since there's a possibility that Wilder could actually fight Anthony Joshua for more money, which means more money for us underneath the table, we're not gonna mandate a Dillian Whyte fight and possibly fuck that situation up. But we'll give you this number 2 motherfucker named Dominic Brazil. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because the cat that you trying to fight, he already knocked this nigga the fuck out. So I know you gonna knock him the fuck out. Right? Plus you got that beef between the two that makes for, let me say, I don't want to say it's a better fight than Dillian Whyte, because Dominic Brazil is not a better fighter than Dillian Whyte in my opinion. But I can see people being more intrigued here in America anyway, not in the UK, but in America, being more intrigued to see Wilder fight a Dominic Brazil over Dillian Whyte because of the beef that they had months ago. You know what I'm saying? With Deontay Wilder's brother and shit. So there's that situation with Wilder. I've been telling y'all that since fucking April. You know what I'm saying? So there's some media outlets out there. And let me say this before I jump into this point, man. You know, I don't like the beef, you know what I'm saying, with motherfuckers that help shine a spotlight on the sport of boxing. You know what I'm saying? If you out there getting your money, you in the media doing what you do, hey, it is what it is, man. My mentality is I really don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? I care about what I do and the niggas that fuck with me. You know what I'm saying? So this isn't a shot that I'm taking at all. But I want to say this. There's some media outlets out there trying to push a possibility that Deontay Wilder fights Tyson Fury next. There's that. And then there's some other outlets saying, you know, if Anthony Joshua relinquishes the WBA title, then that could possibly make Wilder Joshua in September. Now, here's the thing. That second statement, that's a possibility. But again, I go back to the value, or at least the devaluing of the fight, as the fighters would perceive it, right? Again, both these fighters want to be undisputed. With AJ having all 3 belts, Wilder having 1, this is going to be an undisputed fight. If AJ drops one of the belts, it will no longer be an undisputed fight. And that devalues the fight as it pertains to the fighters. So while that can still happen, I don't think it will happen personally. The first statement, listen, there's no way in hell Tyson Fury accepts a fight with Deontay Wilder after that Sefer Safari bullshit that we just saw recently, right? The nigga came in still fat as fuck. He weighed the most he's ever weighed, like in the last 6 or 7 years. You know what I'm saying? My man had pork belly all over his stomach. Nigga had fat back. You know what I'm saying? You're not ready for a Deontay Wilder fight even early next year. He needs at least 2 or 3 more fights. Also, y'all got to remember, he's with Frank Warren. Frank Warren is the king of keeping his fighters away from danger. Joe Calzaghe, right? Terry Flanagan. Right now, Anthony Yard, however you say a nigga's name. Terry Flanagan is still his fighter. They fucked up with the Maurice Hooker shit, but it was the best fight to take for a belt at 140 because he can't fuck with Jose Ramirez or Regis Prograis. Plus, he was just fighting for the same belt that he had at 135 that he vacated before he was supposed to fight Felix Verdejo, right? A fight that he probably would have lost there too, maybe. You know what I'm saying? But he's with Frank Warren. That's the whole point. This motherfucker's the king at protecting his fighters. So he's definitely not going to give Deontay Wilder to Tyson Fury. And even though Tyson Fury has the type of personality where he could actually control how his career is managed on the side while paying somebody to actually stand in as a manager or a promoter, I think he would oblige this request from Frank Warren. Like, nah, not Wilder yet. So that fight's not happening. And then, like I said before, Dominic Breazeale has already been in the works. It's already there. You know what I'm saying? Now, stranger things have happened in boxing. We could very well get a Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder fight. But I think that shit is highly, highly fucking improbable. Just based on, you know, what we've come up with over the last few months. The writing has been on the wall, and I've been telling you cats that. You know what I'm saying? On the Three Kings Boxing Podcast and on this channel right here. So all you got to do is follow, man. We gonna put the shit out there. It may not be evident right then and there, but it will start to materialize as time passes. You know what I'm saying? So right now, like I said, the WBO has given Anthony Joshua 24 hours to sign on the dotted line. And usually when they do this whole, yeah, you have 16 hours, all that bullshit, most of the time, the deadlines don't really mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it's all about money. So if they got to go over a deadline, just like the Gennady Golovkin-Canelo fight, they will go over a deadline just to get that money, you know what I'm saying, guaranteed, right? But usually when the sanctioning bodies say shit, most of the time they take action. And apparently if Anthony Joshua don't sign in a day, you know what I'm saying, Deontay Wilder is giving them deadlines. Hey, man, you got the $50 million offer, at least the 39-pound offer. You got 48 hours. Hey, nigga, you know what I'm saying? We agreed to the fight. You got 48 hours to send us a contract. All these deadlines that Deontay Wilder was giving them didn't really mean shit because he doesn't really control anything. But the sanctioning bodies do. And what could happen here, like I said, unless he comes up with some money to give to Andrey Ryabinsky and Alexander Povetkin to step aside, or, I mean, he relinquishes the title, he's going to end up getting stripped, man. And it's going to devalue the fight with Deontay Wilder. And I'm not talking about popularity-wise with the fans. And I'm not talking about the amount of money that can be made with that fight. That fight can happen with no belts on the line. It's still a high-money fight. But these guys are talking in terms of legacy. Yes, they want the money, But I feel like, especially on Deontay Wilder's end, legacy is more important to these guys. And in terms of legacy, the undisputed championship is on the line. And with him relinquishing, that can't happen. So we'll see what happens, man. I've been told y'all niggas, man. We'll see what happens. Actually, I expect, and I didn't mention this. Let me mention this before I go to the next topic. Eddie Hearn, when he offered the contract to Deontay Wilder, right? He said, yeah, he came out, and this is on our fucking website. He came out and said, we actually have a deal with Alexander Povetkin that's pretty much done. He said this weeks ago. This is obviously before the WBA ordered this shit. So he told us weeks ago that he's been working a deal with Povetkin just in case Wilder doesn't accept the challenge. Now, he said this after Wilder had already orally accepted the fight in the UK. He just didn't send the contract over yet. Weeks before that, when he gave the offer to Wilder and Wilder hadn't said anything yet, he said, yo, man, we can only wait 2 weeks max because the WBA is getting ready to order Povetkin. And we getting ready to sign that. We getting ready to get into that fight. We're gonna have to negotiate a purse bid. He said that shit weeks before Deontay Wilder orally accepted the offer. He said it when he gave Wilder the offer. So that's what I'm saying, man. Ryabinsky said it in April that the fight's gonna happen with Povetkin and AJ, and then Eddie Hearn has been telling us in the media subtly that he's working a deal with Povetkin at the same time he's working a deal with Deontay Wilder. So that's what I'm saying, man. That shit's probably gonna happen in September. We'll see though. Let's move to the next topic. And we got some IBF orderings, man. James Degale, the new IBF champion after taking it back from Caleb Truex, the guy he actually lost it to initially, has been ordered to face Jose Uzcategui. Now, if you don't remember who Uzcategui is, he's the guy that arguably defeated Andrey Ryabinsky twice. Of course, arguably because the first fight was a disqualification win for Andrey Ryabinsky. Now, in that fight, of course, in my opinion, Uzcategui hit Andrey Ryabinsky well within the confines of the round not ending. The bell hadn't sounded yet. It was maybe like a second before, half a second before he landed a nice shot that, in my opinion, knocked Andrey Ryabinsky the fuck out. But he dramatized the event much like he did against Arthur Abraham, and he was able to get the disqualification win, right? In the second fight, Uzcategui pretty much picked up where he left off and got Andrey Ryabinsky out of there. Now, that second fight was the IBF Eliminator. It was going to name the possible mandatory for James Degale. At that time, it was Caleb Truex, right? So now the IBF has mandated it. But the problem is, and we reported this on the Three Kings Boxing Podcast on the YouTube channel, James Degale is in talks to face Billy Joe Saunders next. Now, we don't know if that's going to be at 160, 168, or a catch weight in between. But he's supposed to face Billy Joe Saunders next, and that deal is almost done, right? Here's the thing, and I think this is a cash-out fight for James Degale. I think he will be retiring soon. I think he's got possibly one, at max, 2 more fights before he retires. I could be wrong, but this is what I think, right? Since this is going to be a cash-out situation, I think, let me start off with this. James Degale loses both these fights, guys, straight up. Whether he gets stripped for not fighting Jose Uzcategui and possibly takes a Billy Joe Saunders fight at a catch weight that is for the WBO 160-pound title, he loses that fight, right? If he doesn't get the Billy Joe Saunders fight and actually goes with the mandatory, he loses to Jose Uzcategui. In my opinion, gets knocked the fuck out early. I say maybe in 3 or 4 rounds, right? So he's at a crossroads. And of course, there's a third thing. He could not get the Billy Joe Saunders fight and not fight Jose Uzcategui, get stripped by the IBF. Now he's just some fucking fighter at 168 that nobody cares about because he don't bring nothing to the table. That's the third option. But we'll leave that off and go with the first 2 I mentioned. So he's at a crossroads. He can either, basically it's a situation like, hey dog, how much you want to get paid for your L, nigga? You want to get paid pennies on the dollar to get knocked the fuck out? An L that is much more brutal, right? Or do you want to get paid millions and lose a 12-round decision? That's basically where James Degale is at right now. And that's barring the fact that Frank Warren actually gets that fight made with his fighter, Billy Joe Saunders. We'll see what happens, man. But he's at a crossroad, and I really believe this is a cash-out fight for him. But it's an easy decision to make if both fights are on the table like that. Like I said, the Billy Joe Saunders fight is damn near done. It's not 100% done, but it's damn near done. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's go to the next topic. Another IBF ordering between Daniel Jacobs and Sergey Derevyanchenko. Now, of course, Derevyanchenko was the IBF mandatory for Gennady Golovkin, but Gennady Golovkin was stripped for not consenting to face Derevyanchenko by August after they allowed him to face Vanes Martirosyan May 5th as the replacement for Canelo Alvarez, right? So, and it was a situation where his lawyers, you know, filed the wrong appeal and shit to basically allow him to keep the IBF title, even though he didn't consent until to fight. He had till August to consent. They filed the wrong appeal, so then the IBF was like, "Hey, we stripping you," and they're well within their means to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much the team of Golovkin. It's their fault that the shit happened. You know what I'm saying? So that title is now vacant. Of course, the number one contender is Derevyanchenko. Number two is Daniel Jacobs. But the problem here is this. Both fighters are managed and trained by the same people. Keith Connolly is both the guys' managers. And of course, Andrey Ryabinsky trains both these guys. So my thing is, how the fuck is the fight going to happen? It's a big conflict of interest. You know, the reason why Adrian Broner wouldn't fight Lamont Peterson is because Barry Hunter is Adrian Broner's assistant trainer and Lamont Peterson's head trainer, right? Let me change that around. The reason why Lamont Peterson wouldn't fight Adrian Broner. Broner didn't give a fuck. But Peterson, he noted the conflict of interest. He was like, yeah, while I would take that fight, I can't do it because Barry Hunter. The reason why we're not seeing Sergey Kovalev versus Alexander Povetkin is because Aegis Klimas manages both the fighters. Conflict of interest, right? So this one is not just one conflict of interest, it's two. And it's a combination of both conflict of interests and those examples I just gave you. So while both guys have come out and say, hey, I'll take the fight, and it's a good opportunity because for Daniel Jacobs, this is an opportunity for him to become a world champion again after losing a controversial decision to Gennady Golovkin and losing his belt, right? So he has an opportunity to be a world champion again. Even though he's one of the top 5 fighters at 160 already without a belt, he will have a belt to back that claim now, right? And then, of course, Derevyanchenko, a guy that really, if you look at his amateur career, it's not that it's not successful, but he's lost fights at the amateur level that would tell you as a boxing fan that he probably might not be a world champion as a professional, right? His amateur career did not paint a picture that he would be a top-level fighter as a professional. But he's in a position to be one now. So this is an excellent opportunity for Derevyanchenko, right? And both these fighters understand it. That's why they're saying, hey, we'll fight, even though there's two conflict of interest. And then, of course, these guys are trained together. They're in the same camp. They've sparred a lot of times. They know each other. So, I mean, it's a good opportunity for both guys. It can make for a great fight since they know each other already. But how's this going to happen? You know, both Andrey Ryabinsky could easily remove himself from the situation and have both fighters hire new trainers just for this fight, right? Or Andrey Ryabinsky could train one of the guys and the other guy use the second assistant. It could be that. But see, the problem here that you have, if the second situation happens, is whoever the loser is, he will be open to an opportunity of saying, hey, the reason why I lost because my head trainer trained that motherfucker instead of me. You know what I'm saying? See, the conflict of interest with the manager, that doesn't matter. The manager's job is to advise the fucking fighter, right? And tell him, hey, this is what I think the decisions you should make before a fight happens. The fight gets signed, he's done. Manager's job is done at that point. But the trainer, he's there before the fight, during the training camp of the fight, during the fight, and after the fight. He's your right-hand man. So when you lose your right-hand man for a big fight, either of these fighters could it could be a disadvantage to either one of these guys, a huge disadvantage for either one of these guys. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I wonder how the fuck they get this shit done. It is what it is. YouTube, do what you do in the comment section. Let me know what you think about these topics, but be real. This is real talk for real fans. One.